Hello, I'm Chuck Wolf, Chief Executive for Charles J. Wolf Associates, LLC. As a motivational speaker and a leadership consultant and executive coach and trainer, I often work with very successful people in their companies. Since many can't afford a professional, I volunteer to host a radio talk show called The Emotion Roadmap, Take the Wheel and Control How You Feel, on a nonprofit community radio station in Bridgeport, Connecticut, WPKN. My reason for doing the show is to share with as many people as possible this wonderful process for helping people manage their own emotions and their relationships with others. My goal is for everyone listening to learn to use the Emotion Roadmap to make life better. As you listen to me, help others, I hope you are also learning. As a Simsbury resident, I'm delighted to be able to make the show available through Simsbury TV. To learn more, go to my website, www.emotionroadmap.com. Thank you for listening and watching.
And this is Chuck Wolf, and you're listening to the Emotion Roadmap. Take the wheel and control how you feel. I am glad to be back with you. It's been a couple of weeks since I've been live on the air. I had a couple of new shows. I hope you enjoyed them. I had a chance to interview Andrew Foss talking about the emotion revolution in the workplace. Fascinating interview. He is working collaboratively with the Center for Emotional Intelligence at Yale University with a colleague of mine named Mark Brackett, and they've got some plans that are pretty interesting. If you want to listen to the interview, I suggest you go to the podcast. If you go to WPKN podcast and you go to SoundCloud and you type in Emotion Roadmap and Emotion Revolution, you should be able to find it. It's really an interesting idea that we want to understand what people are feeling in the workplace. This whole show, as you know, is all about taking the wheel and controlling how you feel. And I have a lot of callers from time to time talking about conditions in the workplace, how they're feeling about the relationships with their managers, their leaders, their coworkers, people that work for them, people that they share decision-making responsibilities for, and trying to find ways to collaborate. Trying to find ways to handle differences, handle diversity of opinions, of thoughts, of values. Always very challenging. And if you, again, want to listen to the Emotion Revolution in the Workplace, the interview I did with Andrew Foss, who's, if you want to know more about Andrew, you can look him up in the Foss, F-A-A-S, foundation.org. Fascinating fella, and he's got some great ideas about what he wants to help create in the workplace. Much less bullying, much less coercion, much less dysfunction. He's really looking for stable environments that drive performance, that drive engagement. The other show that I had that seems to be getting a lot of listeners after the fact is a show about a Scottish woman who called me one day and said that in part her Scottish heritage was responsible in some ways for her inability to deal with her anger. And I spent a long time with her on the phone trying to understand what it was that was causing the anger and what she might do to handle it differently in the workplace. And particularly, she was struggling a bit with that. And it's fun. I took the interview and I kind of teased it apart because one of the goals I have for this show, if you're a new listener, if you're a regular listener, you know this already. And I want to thank everybody who's tuning in today to listen. I'm always appreciative for those of you that take some time out to listen to the show. But one of the goals for the show that I have is to teach you, all of you that listen, how you might use this idea of an emotion roadmap to help you to manage situations in your life that have strong emotions involved. A lot of times I find smart people struggle when there's an emotion in play that they're not comfortable handling. And sometimes that emotion's inside of them, and other times it's inside of people that they have to deal with or that they are currently dealing with. And when that happens, a lot of times, even smart, critical thinkers, really effective problem solvers, kind of get stuck. Because when there's emotion in play, it isn't just about what's the rational thing to do. In fact, there was once a Harvard Business Review tip that I read. If you like Harvard Business Review and you think that they're a journal that you'd like to know more about, for free online, you can type in Harvard Business Review tip, and a daily tip will come to your inbox. And it just I find them very interesting. Once in a while, I end up talking about them, like today. So one of the things that a Harvard Business Review tip said one day was that if you find that a colleague of yours is not responding to rational argument, to rational persuasion, to rational influence, then you're not dealing with something rational, and stop trying. It said you're dealing with something emotional. Try to understand the emotions in play. Try to understand what your colleague, your boss, your coworker, the person who works for you is feeling. Because if you understand what the feelings are that are in play, you'll understand what you need to do different if you really do want to influence that person. So I'm trying as hard as I can over these last 7 years to teach people who are regular listeners how to use this idea of an emotion roadmap. So the conversation with the Scottish woman was a particularly good one because I could take her phone call with me, edit it a bit, and then use it to teach exactly what I mean when I say the emotion roadmap works like this. And let me give you a quick overview. So the emotion roadmap is basically this idea that when you're finding yourself in a situation where the stakes are high, and the stakes might be high at work or they might be high at home. You know, this isn't necessarily about a work skill. The emotion roadmap is all about life and helping you to navigate the journey that you are all exploring as you go through life, and that at times becomes very challenging. Sometimes it feels like you're in a boat and you're in white water, and you're going up and down, and you're not sure if you're going to make it. Well, a lot of times that's an emotional, wave that's overcoming you, and you want to be able to manage that wave, to ride that wave, to not block it, not repress it, but to go with it, understand what the wave's about, understand how the wave works, understand what you need to do to navigate. So the emotion roadmap is helping people to try to understand a situation that's in play that's highly emotional. That's number one. And again, anytime the stakes are high, even if there are not strong emotions that you're noticing and thinking about, when the stakes are high, it's always worthwhile to think about, how are you feeling? And if there's one or more people that's key to what you're doing, how is he or she or they feeling? So the idea of a roadmap is to first start with, where are you in terms of feelings? What are you feeling? And then to think about, what would you like to feel? If you could make magic happen and you could create a new situation that created a set of different feelings that are more ideal to the particular task or challenge you're facing, what would you ideally want to feel for yourself? And what would you ideally want the person or people you're dealing with that are key to what you're trying to get done, what would you want he or she or they to feel? So a roadmap helps to guide us to going from one place to another place. So if I'm in Bridgeport, Connecticut, where we're broadcasting from today in WPKN, if I'm in Bridgeport, Connecticut, and I want to get to New York City, I have one of two major choices in terms of roads I could take. I could take Route 95 or I could take the Merritt. I could also take a train or a bus. It's even possible if I wanted to take a helicopter if I felt the need and I could afford it. But the point is that you want to think about where you are and where you want to get to. That's a roadmap. An emotion roadmap says if I'm feeling anxious and I want to feel confident, what are the choices I have in terms of how I might move myself from anxious to confident? If I have a colleague that's distrusting and I want them to trust me, what are the roadways or the possibilities for me to create trust in that person that may feel distrust at the time that I'm trying to talk with them or work with them or influence them? So that's the idea of a roadmap. And it's based in part on the science of emotional intelligence, which is only recently discovered. That's what's exciting about this whole concept, is that the science of emotional intelligence is a new intelligence that we've discovered that really no one was really talking about until the president of Yale University, Peter Salovey, and his coworker and colleague, Jack Mayer, a University of New Hampshire psychology professor, discovered that there really are some abilities that are different than our cognitive abilities, that are measurable, and that the differences each of us have in those abilities matter. And sometimes they matter significantly. And the abilities that they measure are the ability to identify emotions. So if you think about my emotion roadmap, I just said you want to identify how you're feeling right now. Not everybody can do that easily. That's partly what I want to try and teach you, how to do that more effectively. So if you listen regularly, hopefully you're learning to think about how are you feeling. So stop. If you're listening, just take a second and think about, how am I feeling right now? How are you feeling right now? And is that feeling what you want to feel based on what's in front of you today? Based on what you want to get done today? Based upon any meeting that you might be going into today? Any meeting you might be leading today? Any conversation you need to have that's going to be challenging today? What are you feeling right now? So that's the first ability that Salovey and Mayer discovered, was, can people identify effectively what they're feeling in themselves and in others? Second ability that they discovered was this idea of the use of emotion. And the use of emotion is really fascinating, and I don't know that anyone ever thought about this before their work was published. And that is this idea that certain emotions are particularly suited for certain tasks, better than other emotions. So, for instance, if you're unfortunately going to a wake in the next few days because of someone you know has died and passed on, and you want to know what the appropriate feeling is for that, that's pretty easy, right? It's grieving, it's empathy, it's sympathy, it's support that you want to feel for their family members that may have experienced a loss. So, I mean, those are fairly easy, I believe, to identify. But what if you're going into a contentious meeting where you know you have people really disagreeing with one another? How about this one? What is Judge Gorsuch, right now the Supreme Court nominee by President Trump, what is he feeling as he goes through this inquiry where people are pushing him in many different directions, trying to see what he truly believes, trying to understand if he would make a fair and just Supreme Court justice? How is he feeling, and how does he want to feel? And how does he want the people who are interviewing him, all those senators, to feel? See how important it can be when the stakes are really high? But it could be just as important to you if you have a tough conversation at home with a spouse or a daughter or a son or a brother or aging parent or whoever it is might be in your family life. Those are really important conversations too. So as you think about it, what would be ideal to feel? Not so easy to figure out, but I'm trying to help people to think that through. So first, the first ability Mayer and Salovey discovered is, how do you identify what people are feeling? The second was, how do you use emotions? What emotions are best for particular situations that you're facing? And then understanding emotions is the third ability, and understanding emotions is the science of how emotions work. How emotions work. Now, emotions sometimes work like a seesaw or a roller coaster. You're up and then you're down, and then you're screaming and then you're calm. So emotions can be, intense and just happen in a moment. But lots of times in relationships, what we learn about emotions and how they work is that relationships, the feelings you have evolve over time typically. So if you've been married for a lot of years, initially there was a really strong love attraction. And maybe the love attraction has receded somewhat. Or maybe it hasn't, but it's possible that it has. And maybe what is in its place is this intense friendship with this partner of yours for all the years you've been together. I mean, that'd be sort of ideal to have both a love and a friendship, wouldn't it? In a spousal relationship, a partner relationship. But what if you don't have those feelings toward your spouse or partner? Does it mean you need to end the relationship? Or does it mean that you need to rekindle those feelings? You need to think about, how do I make those feelings happen? And that's the understanding part. How do I change what I'm feeling to what I want to feel? What's ideal to feel? That's the idea of a roadmap that occurred to me as I was working with Salovey and Mayer. First, I have to tell you, I was very lucky in some ways. I was effective and smart too, but I was lucky to be at a place where I got the opportunity to work with the president of Yale University, with Jack Mayer, one of the most brilliant psychologists I've ever met, in a way where they were just exploring what they had discovered and how it might come to life. That was my role with them, helping them find a way to take what they were learning in laboratories and in studies, in research studies, and make it useful to people. And that's where the emotion roadmap comes from. So I'm learning that they're saying that there's abilities that have to do with identifying feelings, using feelings, understanding feelings, and finally managing feelings. Because ultimately what we're all trying to do is to manage how we feel, how others feel around us, how others feel with us, how we want others to feel who are important to us. Managing emotions has two parts. And while they're related, they're also quite different. One is, how do you manage emotionally what's going on inside of you? The second is, how do you manage what's going on inside somebody else emotionally? And can you influence what somebody else is experiencing emotionally? Absolutely, I believe. Of course you can. I'm trying to influence all of you to continue to listen, right? I'm trying to influence all of you to feel engaged in the conversation. So the idea of the emotion roadmap is to capitalize on what I learned about emotional intelligence from Mayer and Salovey, but also to add my own creativity to it. So what I decided was that emotional intelligence has 4 abilities that are unique to that intelligence, and they can be measured. You can measure how effectively you identify feelings, how effectively you use feelings, how effectively you understand feelings, and how effectively you manage feelings, your own and others. You can measure that with a test they call the Mesquite. Mesquite's kind of a cool sounding name. It simply stands for Mayer, Salovey, Caruso. That's the another colleague of theirs that took a lead role in creating this assessment. So it is Peter Salovey, Jack Mayer, David Caruso, and it is the Mayer, Salovey, Caruso emotional intelligence test is the Mesquite. Now, if you Google emotional intelligence, you find there's all kinds of assessments out there, and they all seem to do some relative important measures that help people understand some of what's going on inside them emotionally. But most of them, if not all of the others, simply are you taking a look at yourself in terms of the way you answer certain questions that they propose that you answer, or how others see you operating. And while those are important distinctions and they're important, it's important information to have about how others see you and how you have a view of yourself in terms of how you're dealing with all this emotional information and the emotional data that we all experience. It's not the same as measuring abilities. It's really quite different. And the only real ability test is this one that I just told you about, the Mayer, Salovey, Caruso emotional intelligence test. But I find that the emotion roadmap works with all of them. But it doesn't just work with assessments, it works with life. What I set out to do was to find something that you could use, that I could use with you, that I could teach others, that would help people to manage emotions more successfully. So that's what the show's about. And I'm going to keep trying to reinforce for you as you listen to the show that's on the first, second, and fourth Wednesdays of each month at 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. on the community strip at WPKN. Again, you can also listen, in case you're away and you want to listen to a show or you missed a show and you want to hear it, you can listen on SoundCloud, on Stitcher, and on iTunes through podcast. Perhaps the easiest way is to go to WPKN podcast and click on the Emotion Roadmap playlist. And then you can hear shows that you might have missed. But the importance is to try and understand. I've been on for 7 years, and I'm hoping that those who listen regularly are learning how to do this for themselves. I was quite pleased. I saw something that my daughter wrote recently, and she was highlighted for kind of being a woman in the spotlight in the organization where she is. I'm very proud of her. And she had said that she kind of lives by the motto of the tagline for the show. She's always thinking about, how do I take the wheel and control how I feel? That's the tagline is all about you being in control of your feelings instead of your feelings controlling you. I mean, I don't know anybody that at least every once in a while feels like their feelings are in charge, and they're not. But sometimes we easily can gain control over them. Other times it's much more difficult. But no matter what you're feeling, if what you're feeling at a particular point in time isn't helpful, it's really useful to know that you can do something about that you can take control. Now, the best situation for teaching is always to have someone who's ready to call in. And so I'm hoping that I've got people out there who are listening and intrigued and have got something going on in their life right now, whether it's at work or at home, having to do with a community situation, having to do with a neighborhood, having to do with a workplace situation, having to do with a new job, a new team that you're leading, or a new leader for your team, and you want to figure some stuff out, and you're kind of stuck, and you think there's a little bit of emotional overpowering the situation, and you want to talk about it. Then my expertise could be helpful. And what's a real beauty of the show is if you call in with something and I can help you and I can demonstrate how I'm helping you as I do that, everybody's learning. So if you got something going on with a colleague at work, someone who you work for, someone who works for you, if you got something going on in the home place where you might have one of the people that called in recent weeks was a woman who was struggling. She found an old boyfriend out on Facebook, and she was a happily married woman, but she was struggling with the idea that she and the old boyfriend connected, and stuff was happening on Facebook that she didn't really understand, and she really felt like, wow, this is kindling feelings from way back, and they seem real, but I'm very happily married, and I feel like I haven't done anything, but I feel like it's cheating somehow, and I'm not really sure what to do. And in making the call to me, it became very clear to me that she wanted someone. She needed a little bit of support to understand that at this point, if she really cared about her relationship with her current husband, and she really had no issues, and this was just like old stuff that just popped up in her brain. And she was having fun with it, but at this point it was beginning to get serious, and she knew she had to cut it off. And I reinforced that for her. And she was glad, and she made a commitment that as much as it was fun, it was leading in a direction she didn't really want to go in. And she needed some help in realizing that. And so it could be something like that, but it also may be something at work where I've had people call in and someone was given a performance appraisal after a really good year that just said, hey, it looks like you didn't think I had a really good year. And somebody else who was in that same team as her, who didn't have such a good year, got a really good review. And it was pretty clear to this woman that this man had some kind of issue with her. He seemed to like men better because a few other men also got better reviews than she thought that they might have. I guess they had all talked about this. And she was wondering what to do. And basically, there was a couple things that I had suggested that, I asked her what she'd already tried, and she told me. I said, well, are you at the place where you realize that you may not be able to stay here if you want the reviews that you think you deserve to actually occur, not at least with this boss. And so you need either to find another place in that organization or someplace outside that organization. And it wasn't until we exhausted a lot of things that, I would never just say that lightly, of course, but it got to a place where she really felt helped and supported in realizing that this probably wasn't going to change. And this wasn't her issue, this was his issue. And if she continued to work for him, it wasn't going to get better. Now, what she did with that was she then made a plan and then followed through on it. The idea is that if you got something going on in your life and you'd like to share it, and I can help you by using the emotion roadmap, think it through, plan for it, understand the emotions in play, help you manage those emotions. Everybody's learning when we're talking, when you and I are talking. So you got something. I ask you not to hesitate to pick up the phone and call. The number is 203-336-9756. 203-336-9756. So perhaps if you call, like the Scottish woman, you'll learn to manage your anger, or you'll learn perhaps how to deal with a complex, challenging situation where you might be just another smart person who's stuck because something emotional is in play. So I'll give you the number a couple more times. See if we get a caller. It's always more fun with a caller. 203-336-9756. 203-336-9756. I'll wait a moment. Hi, this is Chuck. Thanks for calling. You're on the air. Who am I talking to?
This is Lisa.
Hi, Lisa. Thanks for calling.
Hi. I have a situation at my workplace where my employer is very much behind on our pay, not just mine, but all of the employees. And it's been going on for about 5 years, and he's about 12 weeks behind now on his pay. And it's gotten to the point where my emotions are really starting to affect me. I'm getting very anxious about it. And I finally today called the labor board and got some advice. And I think for me, it's more of a situation where I know I have to do something at this point because there haven't been any consequences as far as my employer goes. We've had discussions with him on how he can catch up on our pay, and he hasn't followed through. And so now my anxiety starts to come up when I think about how I have to move forward with what I need to do.
So anxiety sometimes is a driving force to make you want to do something. It can be paralyzing at the same time and cause you to act out in strange ways. So you really want to be careful about what the anxiety is causing you to think and do, right?
Right.
So it sounds like this has been going on for a long time. What kind of spurred the anxiety at this point? I imagine you were feeling uncomfortable about this this is going on a long time. So.
Right.
What's causing you to make a move now, I guess?
Yeah, and it spurred my anxiety. It spurred me to do something in the past too, or my anxiety came up in the past too. But I guess it comes in like waves or increments. And this particular time was that I had to ask for my check, and he said to me, all you had to do was ask for it, and I said I didn't really realize that I had to ask for my check.
Right.
So and also the partner is away on vacation. So we're all thinking, okay, it's nice. He can afford to go away on vacation, and we're all sitting here working without getting paid.
Right. So is this a family-owned business or?
No.
So the labor, you got some advice from the labor department. So could you share what that was? Is that comfortable for you to share?
Yeah, they told me that, if I don't do something, things aren't going to change, and I need to protect myself at this point.
Okay, so you're feeling that they just supported what you're already thinking you need to do, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, and they didn't tell you how to go about forcing the issue. They just said take care of yourself, which is nice,
right.
but not particularly helpful, right?
Yeah, because they said, it's been going on for so long and nothing's been done. You've approached him before in the past, tried to work out a plan, and he hasn't implemented it, so nothing's going to change. And I'm realizing that. I've realized that for quite a while now, but it's just my anxiety takes over when I realize that I have to do something.
So how this works? Your name was Lisa, you said?
Yes.
Yeah. So, Lisa, how this works is that, first of all, we look at how you're feeling, and then we ask you how you want to feel. But there's a piece here that says that you've got a problem that you're trying to figure out how to solve. And then most people want to jump in right away with, here's like 1,000 solutions that jump to my mind. But the best thing that anybody can do if they're talking to somebody and trying to help them solve a problem is to ask first, what have you already tried, or what are you thinking about doing? Before I just jump in with all kinds of wild ideas, I'd like to know, what are you thinking about?
As far as what I would like to try to do?
Yeah.
Well, I've had discussions with the employees, and nobody seems to be doing anything about it. It's all talk. So I feel like at this point I need to take care of myself. I stand to lose the most. He owes me the most in back pay.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought that I would just go to my employer personally and say, look, this isn't working for me. I come in every day with resentment, and it's not a healthy situation. And I was going to propose to him that, I'll take 8 weeks off, and you keep sending me my check, and then at the end of 8 weeks, if my job is still open, I'll come back, and you continue to pay me in a timely manner. I'll continue to work here.
Okay. You have any other options, or is that the major one you're thinking about right now?
I guess the other option is to line up another job first, and then give him my notice.
Right. Had you thought about leaving? Because it sounds like this has gone on for such a long time. I got to believe you've thought about that at different points in time, and since you haven't left, there must be some reasons holding you back.
Yeah, the workplace it's a nice place to work. I like what I do. My boss, for the most part, is a nice guy. We have flex hours, so I can come and go as I please as long as I get my work done. I do work hard, but with that said, I enjoy the flex hours.
Okay.
And I suppose I could probably, if I do seek out another job, that might be a possibility somewhere else, but I don't know. I like the people that I work with. I guess it comes down to familiarity. I just feel like I've been here 10 years, and I feel that it's just in other words, I feel like I'm getting out of my comfort zone if I take action.
And that's the challenge for everybody that faces change. It's very hard sometimes to overcome the resistance to change. Let me tell you what actually makes this happen. One is, let's say you approach him about this, and he just says, "You know what? I don't really care. It's just the way we're going to do it." Or he says, "I'm going to fix it," and the next week he doesn't give you the check again. In other words, he's kind of done that with you a few times already. I'm guessing,
yes,
right?
Definitely.
Okay, so it's like there's no consequence for him to keep doing what he's doing.
Exactly.
And so, how do you supply a consequence without just quitting? Because you kind of like there's a lot that you like there, but I think in your own mind, and here's where I'm going to try and be helpful, you want him to feel as though what you're going to tell him matters, and because you believe he values you in this spot, that he's going to do something about it, and he feels committed to you and supportive of you. That's what you want. That's what you want him to feel: committed and supportive of you. I mean, that's ideally what you want him to feel. And right now, he's kind of like non-committal and non-supportive. He's just he's kind of got what he wants, and he does, for whatever reason, he feels like he can keep doing this. Now, if you are going to offer a consequence, you got to be able to feel comfortable, Lisa, with whatever you offer up as a consequence. And the consequence could be, you know what, I'm going to come in here, but I'm going to just start skipping days. I wouldn't say 8 weeks off, because he's not going to pay you for the 8 weeks. But I'm just going to just start taking days off and until we're even. Mm. And in those days, I'd suggest you do start looking for other work. Because otherwise it feels like he's the one in control. And you begin to feel like you're in control when you start realizing that, hey, I do have some other options out here.
Right.
And then you feel more power in whatever it is you're going to negotiate and less at risk.
Right. And that makes me feel less anxious doing it that way.
So you're not threatening him with 8 weeks off, because you couldn't really have that happen. And that's not going to, and you really probably aren't going to do that anyway. But you're going to say, I'm just going to not show up because you don't feel the need to have me pay me on time. So as much as I love working here, and I really think the world of you, I can't live like this anymore unless I start changing some things myself. So some mornings I'm going to just take the day off. I'll call you, I'll let you know, but I'm just not going to come in, and I'm going to keep doing that until I think we're even.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that makes perfect sense. And I've thought about that, too. That was one of my options. I guess the other options that I've been thinking about are a little bit more drastic, and then the anxiety starts to pop up.
And this way, if he says, "Oh yeah, sure you are," and then the next day you don't come in, but then you're in the day afterwards, So and the thing that's interesting about doing it that way, Lisa, is that he never knows when you're going to be in or not, and whether you're going to do this or not. And you only have to do it a few times for him to be nervous about it and to feel like, hey, there is a consequence, and I don't like this. I don't like that she's not going to be here, and I don't know what Now, if he says, "I got to fire you if you do that," well, then I think you got to understand that he may not be willing to change this, and you might need to, at that point, feel like, okay, I like a lot of the things here, but I can't live with this anymore. I mean, that's the thing in your head you got to decide before you have any of these conversations. Are you willing to look out other places and to consider moving on seriously? Because until you get okay in your own head about that, then you really shouldn't do any of these other things.
Exactly. Yeah, and I guess maybe that's what's making me feel so anxious, is because I don't feel okay with it, and I want to try something else that's not as drastic, and go that route first.
So
maybe that's why the anxiety is popping up so much.
But understand, don't try it unless you're really willing to do the work to look elsewhere. And I'm not saying start. I'm not saying start there, but just in your own mind, make up your mind that, hey, I've been doing this for a long time. He hasn't changed. He probably isn't going to change. But I'm going to give it one more shot. And I'm going to give it a shot because years ago I had learned something in experimental psychology, and it was something to do with rats and their behavior around getting pellets, and that's what I'm using here with him, because he's kind of rat-like in the way he's behaving towards you. But anyway, the whole idea is simply that if you don't know when the next pellet's coming or how it's going to come, you start doing all kinds of superstitious things to try and change your behavior to make it right, so you know when Lisa's going to show up. What can I count on for Lisa to show up? And then, by the way, I would, if you decide to do this little technique, I would miss like an important day as well. I would just say, I'm just calling it. Well, why didn't you knew you needed to be here? This was an important day. Hey, it's important to me that I get paid on time. You knew that too.
Okay. Yeah, that's a great incentive.
Okay. Is that helpful?
Yes, very much so. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Okay, my pleasure, Lisa. Good luck with it.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, that was Lisa. And I'm happy to take another phone call, but again, it's the idea of how do you want this other person to feel, and if you are going to make him feel like there's a consequence that matters, you want him to feel committed and supportive of you. And you got to change something in the dynamic of what's going on, because so far nothing's different. So the number to call, let me give you the number again. And I'll wait. 203-336-9756. 203-336-9756. Now wait a minute. So if you're wondering should you call or not, what do you got to lose? If I can help you, I can't help you. But if you've got something going on that you're really uncertain about, this is a chance to get some expert advice, just because you happen to be a WPKN listener. By the way, you're listening to WPKN 89.5 FM, listener-supported radio in Bridgeport, Connecticut. And I often talk about us as being a community radio station. And I'm learning more about the definition of what that means. But we are not an NPR affiliate. We are out here doing good work for the people who listen to us locally and people who listen to us streaming on WPKN.org. And now you can hear us on podcast on SoundCloud, Stitcher, and on iTunes. So any way you want to listen to us, I think you'll always find something that you can like on WPKN. So the number again, I'll give it another shot, 203-336-9756. 203-336-9756. Hi, this is Chuck Wolf. You're on the air. Who's calling, please?
Hello, Chuck. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Who are you?
Good.
I'm sorry.
pretty good.
No, I'm sorry. Who are you? What can I call you?
Nothing that I need to discuss with you that has to do with my head.
Well, that's okay. Could I get your first name or something I can call you?
My name is Warren.
Warren? Okay, thanks for the call, Warren. What did you want to chat about?
What I was looking for was, on your last program, I believe it was, you had on a gentleman who had written a book having to do with corporate bullying, and I would like to have the title of that book and that gentleman's name.
Sure. I don't have the title in front of me. It is about bullying, but his name is Andrew Foss.
Andrew?
Yeah, and his last name is Foss. Faas.
Okay.
And you can look up. Where you can get. You can get the book on Amazon if you just look him up as an author.
Okay.
Yeah. So you heard the show about the emotion revolution in the workplace. Pretty interesting, wasn't it?
I think it could be a very interesting thing, and I think it's something that very much needs to be part of the work environment.
Yeah, I wish it could go faster. It's going to be I guess I've talked to the people at Yale about trying to actually get involved with that and try to be helpful with it, because it's what they're doing now is they've created a survey. Actually, if you want to participate in the survey, you could on my website you can click on current issues. My website is emotionroadmap.com, and you can click on current issues, and there's a Yale survey you can fill out about this. And your information gets to be part of the data. But anyway, they're going to be doing research over the next probably year and a half or so, and then they're going to try and analyze what is it that people basically are feeling at work. And by the way, I think it's different in a lot of places. I mean, if you were listening to the caller before, obviously there's things that she likes a lot about the workplace, and then the not getting paid on time is something that obviously is upsetting. So you're going to see a mixture of feelings, but I think a lot of big companies, and the Gallup actually measures this pretty regularly, find that there's a lot of people out there that feel disengaged at work. I mean, there's very well, I won't say few, but 2 out of every 10 people, 2%, 20% of the population is typically fully engaged, meaning doing everything they can to help their workplace to do great. But engagement's an emotional issue, and if you think about what is it that people are feeling that are coming to work for me every day, and you're doing everything you can to make.
I think that's a very essential thing.
Yeah.
Because I know, I'm not going to go into details, but I know I experienced corporate bullying to the point where after I finally lost my job because I was set up to fail, believe it or not, for years. Every morning I woke up and said, God, take me, and I thought about putting a bullet in my head.
I'm sorry to hear that.
And that's no exaggeration.
Yep.
So I'm completely familiar with corporate bullying, and it simply comes down to, with my experience, is corporations have become so big and so separated in themselves that they've become inhuman, and they have no comprehension as...
Warren, excuse me, do you have your radio on? Because if you do, could you turn it down? Because it's kind of distorted.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, it's off.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, no, I don't disagree. I think there's been a lot of, years ago there used to be a psychological contract in the workplace that you gave your best years, your most productive, your prime years to an organization, and they'd carry you a little bit. They'd keep you at your salary, and they would take care of you at the end of your career when you couldn't do as much, but you had a lot of organizational knowledge, and so you were still very valuable to them. And that was kind of the deal. And then about maybe 20, 30 years ago, all that broke down when we started having a global marketplace and competition heated up, and people just couldn't. The organizations thought they couldn't afford it.
Because of the number of MBAs entering the upper management position, if you think about it and go back to before 1976, you had, what was it, 1% or 2% of all people graduating from college were graduating with MBAs, and businesses ran without people with MBAs. Then the MBAs got involved, and MBAs think of nothing but spreadsheets. And everything in the corporate environment changed. And the upper management became even greedier and greedier over time, where people are inhuman. Life is cheap, and all they were a tool to use and then toss away when they felt that tool was not providing for them or was causing a problem for them.
Well, I don't disagree. Unfortunately, I think not everybody's like that, but I think there's a fair amount of it. I'm a big fan of capitalism, but I hate excessive greed, and I think too many people that have gotten to the top of organizations just really care about how much money they're making and stop thinking about the human element that really makes whatever it is they do work. So
it's the people who make their money.
Yeah, and
the bodies who make their money. Very interesting.
Yeah.
My grandfather on my father's side was born in 1881. Now, I'm 56, but I knew him for 15 years before he passed away.
Uh-huh.
He started out as a janitor for Williamsburg Savings Bank in Brooklyn, went to night school, ended up becoming head comptroller for Williamsburg Savings Bank and being one of the founders of the Brooklyn Bankers Association. And even back then, so we're talking actually before the market crash, he had a philosophy of there should be a cap on capitalism. Capitalism is a healthy thing, but there needs to be a cap on it. When you look at the disparity between even what people in the 40s head capitalists were taking home percentage-wise compared to what people today are taking home percentage-wise in that position, it's astronomically different. Astronomically different. And I don't understand greed. I don't understand selfishness. Sure, we can this and that having to do with why a person is that way, but I just don't understand the more, me, gimme. I just don't comprehend that.
Yeah, I think there's a lack of spirituality out there that's missing too. I think that's part of it. For me, there, every once in a while, it was funny. One day I was reading the Wall Street Journal a number of years ago, and there was this article about Costco. You know the company Costco?
Yeah. Excuse me?
Do you know the company Costco?
I do know of Costco, yes.
Yeah, so I was reading in the newspaper that Costco, a bunch of financial analysts had downgraded Costco because they felt that they paid too much benefit money to their employees and they overpaid for salaries and benefits more than anybody else in that business. And I looked at that, and I looked at the founder of Costco, and I looked at the philosophy, and I said, you know what? I'm buying that stock.
There you go.
And it's been a winner ever since. It's a great story, and not that they're perfect, but just that idea of trying to do well for the people that work for them. By the way, I work for Exxon, and I know it's a different story maybe for Exxon, but Exxon never ever had anyone leave their company because you could make more money for the same position. They wanted to be the best. They hired the best, and they paid them the most. And they just believed in that. And they treated everybody with respect that worked in that organization. And so, for me, those are important markers in organizations that I think highly of.
Absolutely.
So... Well,
no, you're absolutely right about that. You're treating with people with dignity and respect. And that's an important thing. It's just, hey, I don't know, we could make this a huge, giant circle that'll go off into different directions and then come back again. But I just, it's, I don't know.
Well, let me say this to you, Warren. With someone that thinks like you do, I hope that you're feeling better about life, because it sounds like...
I am. I'm embracing life, without a doubt.
Absolutely. That's good, because you're someone that's got a contribution to make the way you think, in a good way. And I appreciate the phone call.
I appreciate that.
You bet.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
All righty.
Absolutely. I worked for a couple of small operations in my life. I'm a horticulturist and a landscape designer.
Uh-huh.
But, unfortunately, unless you get into a good botanical garden or something like that, it's very few and hard between to find a professional level really in the field. And you know, I have had the fortunate opportunity to work for a couple of small operations. And when I say small, I mean a couple-acre retail nursery. They got landscape design outfits, so they got people going out on the road every day. And they treated their people with a great deal of dignity and respect. It was incredible. I don't think there was anybody who worked for the operation who wouldn't have done anything they asked just simply because of the way they were treated. And
that's
in my
great.
life, I've only had that opportunity a couple of times, and for the most part, I haven't found that with humanity, and I just don't get that. But anyway,
I have found a few leaders out there. If I have found one of the people I've worked closely with is a fellow named John Caparella, and if you look me up on YouTube, you can see an interview I did with him one time, and also one that I did on the radio show that's on prx.org, Public Radio Exchange. Anyway, John is someone who I once saw him tell a customer, very, very important customer. He did a lot of convention business in the hospitality industry, and he once told a customer, he said, as much as I care about you, you have to understand that I care even more about the people that work for me. And the customer was kind of taken aback a little bit. He said, what do you mean? He said, because whatever I'm going to promise you has to be delivered by the people that work for me.
There you go.
And if I don't treat them the absolutely best way I can, they're not going to treat you the best way they can. And that's why it's so important. And I also talked with somebody else who was a CEO over in India who believed that same idea is really important as a business strategy. It's not about being nice. It's not about a human resource strategy. It's a business strategy. You want your customers to experience the best possible outcome, and when they do business with you, then you got to treat your people in the way that they're experiencing the best possible outcome.
Absolutely, because then the employee base is going to give it back.
Exactly.
And then when the customer sits there and goes, "Wow,"
yep.
and it's all around. It comes all around, and it comes full circle that way.
Well, my show is going to end in a couple minutes, but let me just let me just say a couple things. I just want to, kind of building on what you're talking about, and the idea of an emotion roadmap is how do you want people to feel. So everybody that's listening to the show today that may have a role in leading in some meaningful way in any organization, nonprofit, profit, small, medium, large, doesn't matter, but the people that work for you look to you as their leader. And one of the things that you can do, instead of waiting for a culture audit or morale survey to come out by some highly paid consulting group, just look every day and notice how your people are feeling and pay attention. If somebody seems a bit off, approach them. Let them know that you're sensing that things don't look quite right and there's something you can do. And just be supportive, and life will be better. And when those culture audits come through and those morale surveys come through, you're going to get a high engagement score because you're paying attention every day to how people feel that work for you.
Absolutely.
Well, Warren, thank you very much for the phone call. I really appreciate you calling in today.
You're welcome, Chuck, and thanks for letting me talk you through your ear a little bit. You have a great day.
You too. Take care now. Bye-bye. So, folks, you've been listening to the Emotion Roadmap, Take the Wheel and Control How You Feel, and I'm Chuck Wolf. Next week is the 5th Wednesday of the month, so I'm not on, so I'll be back in 2 weeks. But thank you so much for listening, and I hope that you're understanding how this Emotion Roadmap works. When you want to create a different set of feelings because the feelings you're having aren't working the way that you want, think about what you can do to create those other feelings in other people. And, I just had a couple of suggestions in talking with Warren, but also a specific one in terms of talking with Lisa. And sometimes it's not that easy to think it through. And that's why I hope you listen whenever I'm on the air so you get a sense of how this all works, how this plays out, why it matters. Because you do have more control over your emotions than you might have believed ever before. And this show is all about helping you to take the wheel and control how you feel. So I want to thank everybody for listening this week and tuning in. And I look forward to talking to you again in a couple of weeks. Take care, everybody.
Funding for Simsbury Community Television is provided in part by contributions from viewers like you. Thank you.